the other interesting thing I was thinking about today was the Jackson Hastings coming back, and the concerns over Luke Brooks. I'd ask you just, and you wrote an article. This is what sparked the thoughts, Ollie, for your site about Luke Brooks saying, "Hey, lay off a little bit." I don't want to, and I'll tell you why in a sec. But just give us a gist of your article um, and what you actually make of Luke Brooks and where he might go next.
Yeah, so the thing is with Luke Brooks, this isn't me trying to defend the fact that the Tigers are trying to move him on from the club. I still think that's very much the right decision, and Jackson Hastings is the way to go. However, I thought there is all this talk about, Brooks being this big issue. I don't think everyone necessarily thinks, and I know you definitely don't think this, that he's the only problem at the club or he's the biggest problem at the club. But it seems there's a consensus due to, we're talking about the media and how they like when the Tigers aren't going well. Well, they also like when a Tigers or an Eels half isn't playing well as well. And statistically, at least, I know statistics don't speak for anything. Statistically, this is one of Luke Brooks' best seasons in the NRL. And I'm sort of reading that, and I do sort of remember in games he's not crap, but he'll have sort of little periods where he does well and then sort of drop off. But I don't think he's the only issue. I think it is the Tigers as a whole, and that big thing is the effort, and that's what you get with a lot of sort of lower table clubs. Their biggest issue is effort, and if they put in a bit more effort, they'd be doing a lot better as a whole. And Brooks is part of that, where I think at times we do need to see a bit more effort from him, but there are also other players in that team who you'd be able to think of, Daggy, who could probably be putting in that effort. And look, going forward for Brooks, there is room for him at an NRL club, but it's going to be on a reduced deal, and I don't see him possibly starting as a 14, maybe off the bench or somewhere. But I still believe he has it in him to, once he goes to another club, sort of break out and maybe break into a first grade team. He's still got it in it. But
Question for you, Barn. First, what do you, and you're quite fair in your assessments, most players, what do you actually make of Luke Brooks, and how many other first grade teams would actually sign him as a first choice half?
I think
take money aside, not for the 850, but
I think you'd probably find a spot in half the teams running around. To be honest, I reckon 8 out of the 16 he could find a slot. I don't think he's been used correctly. I think he should generally play more of your I'm trying to think of a.
You know who he needs to become?
A Brett Kamali. Generally sits on the back foot, kicks, and either passes long and early, or just generally doesn't run unless there's holes in front of him, and just passes and kicks early and basically stays out of the game. The big knock on him is that he has that absolute howler in him, and I think that's where he gets a lot of the crap from. He can do three good things, but when he gets the ball, hit him on the chest and he just drops a cold. Yep. Or someone just runs straight over the top of him. That's what people remember.
Or he reads a two-man overlap in the eagerness to get it out there.
Just passes it into the ground.
Forward or into the
yeah. It's hard. A lot of football these days is set up it's on your edges. It's a bloke who's outside your number 7. So if you don't have a good defender outside your 7, there's holes there and teams just pound it. The centers and the second rowers are coming at you all day long. And, as soon as there's a crack there, it just keeps coming. So you'll find the majority of teams that are down below the bottom 8 don't have 2 strong centers, or they don't have 2 strong back rowers. You know what I mean? It's just that position on the field. It makes a massive,
and that's where
massive
and you can go
difference.
through. I reckon if you went through the bottom 8 and lined up their pairs of edges, that would reflect very, very, like exactly what you said. I would suggest.
The massive thing is defense as well. And when you've got halves that, the halves are smaller than anyone, so they need their best defender on his outside. And I don't think Brooks has ever had that enforcer sitting on his shoulder to help him out.
Oh,
and
not
stop,
since
you know what I mean?
Early, his first year would have been Gareth Ellis.
Yeah.
I know. Robert Louis would have been. But maybe. Anyway, I think what you said earlier about this, I think he needs to reinvent himself. And even at the Tigers, this could work, not necessarily down the road on the money, but he needs to reinvent himself as a 14. If I was a Madge, I'd be pulling him aside and saying, right, you're going to have half an hour tonight, half dummy half whatever. yeah, backup half if we need you, but become Connor Watson or Tyrone Peachy, and because he's fast, he can. I'd actually have an issue with his defense for not the biggest bloke. He doesn't miss a ton of tackles. He's quick. He'd be in the 5 quickest blokes at the club when he gets a bit of space. So if he reinvent himself that way, I think that's his best hope, and that can lead down the road to other clubs going, oh, hang on a minute. But he'll basically become Moses and By next year, I'd suggest.
Yeah, and that's actually it's a perfect use for him if you're going to have him and Hastings at the club, because I think Hastings has to get the start. But the good thing is Hastings is an 80-minute player. He won't want to come off. So when you do bring Brooks on, all that means is that Hastings just shifts back to lock, and he can be sort of that
But
ball playing
Hastings,
lock.
and you've seen more of him. Hastings strikes me as a bit of a control freak now. Is that right? From the UK? Oh, he's got some mongrel in him. He's almost a better Tyson Gamble sort of player.
He's more controlled than Tyson Gamble,
Yeah.
I'd say. He does have that bit of fire in him. And look, he can play lock, but he doesn't play too much lock over in the UK. I feel like the reports over here just to sort of strike up that bit of, or
I would
will
be
they prefer
gobsmacked.
Brooks over him and play him
I would be
at lock, but
gobs-
he's played a lot less lock than we think.
I'll be gobsmacked if they're not signing him to play halfback. Why else
Yeah.
would you? And the only reason they've said it otherwise is to avoid a whole year of, well, Brooks is going to be under pressure.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if Dewey goes back out the centres, to be honest. And they
Potentially.
play
Playing both.
Hastings at 6 and Brooks at 7.
If it was me, I'd be
Oh.
giving Dewey has to be in 6. I'd be giving Hastings a team. I'd be saying, here you go, it's yours and Dewey's, and Brooksy, you're now a new Moses, and go from there and see how that works. The other one I didn't mention, who I want to mention, I was really impressed with Jake Simpkin. Littles for me felt a bit stale. He's a bit too slow to at times dart, and he's a bit slow in setting things up. Whereas he had that spring in his step, he looked quite good. He has that little. He started doing that little Harry Grant style thing where he has that half a step before he gets into the play. It's just he had just had urgency, and he looked really good. I thought on when he came on. I think he straightened the Tigers up, and I know he's got a spruik on him, but I think there was enough there where they can give him another chance, and he's going to get a chance this week, where they can give him a chance to cement a starting hooker role there.